Hello there, I am the Common Sense Guy. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of a different video. It's going to have a little bit more conjecture in it. It's going to have a little bit more of a thought experiment on it. Before we go too far into it, I just wanted to say I'm still a little bit ill, so my voice isn't amazing at this moment in time. The microphone that I'm using will unfortunately pick up every crackle and whatever in my voice at the moment, but it should be interesting to be able to have this discussion, and it's quite good to be able to sit up and actually look at camera again. But this has been a video that's been a long time coming for me. I'm going to be doing a thought experiment video, as I just said, on the idea of, is the UK government an authoritarian government? Now, to me, it's a question that's already answered, but at the same time, it's an interesting question to propose, especially considering we're supposed to have freedom of expression. And most of the government's retorts to that are, you do have freedom of expression to an extent. And it's like, well, that's not freedom of expression, then, is it? By definition, it's not freedom of expression. So, through this little patch of video we're going to go through, we're going to show the fact that the government is turning more into a Soviet Union type of government. Turning into a Russian-style government where it is banning political objection. You're not allowed in the country if you disagree with our political values. You're not allowed into this country if you disagree with a particular religion. You're not allowed in this country if you disagree with us politically, even minutely. And if you want to meet with some of our leaders, by Tommy Robinson, for instance, you're not allowed to, because you're then deemed as a far-right Nazi and a racist sympathizer. Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't enjoy what Tommy Robinson does all the time. Some of his stuff is amazing, some of his stuff is quite cringy to me. But that's my preference. And that's his freedom of speech and freedom of expression, to be able to go out and express what needs to be said and what has to be said. But, getting into this video, we'll be talking about how lots of different things don't seem to change. So, without further ado, let's get into this video, shall we? Right, so first of all, let's get started on what a hate crime actually is now and what the guidelines are. So as you can see, this is the Daily Wire. So I'm using something that's not really biased at all in any sort of form for the UK at all. So let's go down and read what our UK government have outlined as a hate crime, shall we? The London Metropolitan Police have issued their guidelines for what constitutes a hate crime, and the parameters they delineate are wide enough to cause real concern. The guidelines state a hate crime is when someone commits a crime against you because of your disability, gender identity, race, sexual orientation, religion, or any other perceived difference. It doesn't always include physical violence. Someone using offensive language towards you or harassing you because of who you are or who they think you are is also a crime. So that's very interesting. The fact that just speaking to somebody and maybe calling somebody a derogatory term because you're pissed off in an argument with them, that can now be classified as a hate crime depending on how they reacted to it and how they think about it. But we'll carry on. It gets even better. The guidelines get even dicier here. If someone commits a criminal offence and the victim or anyone else believe it was motivated by prejudice or hate, we class this as a hate crime. It means the offender can be charged for the crime itself and also their reasons for doing it. Which is interesting, because that means that you have to assume the reasons why they're doing it. Now, say for instance, you have the IRA. Does that mean that they were racist against the English people because they wanted their own sovereignty? No. Does it make them terrorists for it? Yes. But does that make them racist and cause a hate crime towards people for that? No. No, it doesn't. And that's just the point, isn't it? You have to now associate the motive behind everything that somebody does, meaning that the state is now in control of what they perceive the reasons why you have done things. That's a little bit worrying, isn't it? Anyway, this gets even better. If someone does something that isn't a criminal offence, so listen to that bit, that isn't a criminal offence, but the victim or anyone else believes it was motivated by prejudice or hate, we would class this as a hate incident. So what the perpetrator has done may not be against the law. Their reasons for doing it are. Again, coming back to the point of the government, the state can interpretate what you are thinking and what the reasons you are doing certain things are done by. If you're not worried by that statement, and if you're not worried by the wording of what this crime can be, the fact that you don't have to be committing a criminal offence for this to be an offence, it just takes somebody's hurt feelings for you to have committed a hate crime. That's absolutely worrying to me, that this is going to happen and has happened. So, let's now move on to what somebody like Sadiq Khan thinks is a hate speech, and what is hate speech, shall we? And let's see what he feels that we need to tackle the most at this moment in time, shall we?
Am I the only one who thinks Sadiq Khan looks like a pigeon? I really don't think that's true, more like a silver fox, no?
I'm glad that you could see the funny side of that, Sadiq Khan. It's very, very good. I'm very, very happy. Very proud of you, in fact. Why didn't you just do that instead of including this into a hate speech selection where you go on to talk about people wanting to kill you? Are you trying to suggest that this is what can start off and then it escalates to that? Because that's a mighty slippery slope, my friend.
Sadiq Khan looks like a sparrow. Better than a pigeon, I guess.
Again, nicely well taken. It's just a bit of banter. Still don't understand why these two are in the beginning of a hate speech selection, which then goes on to talk about people who want you to die and whatever. But we'll get to that, and why the reasons these are put into here. As in the point of, you can't criticise me on a political or personal level at all anymore, because it'll escalate to hate speech, and this is the beginning of hate speech. Absolutely ludicrous.
Sadiq Khan looks like a really shit stunt double of Jose Mourinho. As a lifelong Liverpool supporter, I find that deeply offensive. I say kill the Mayor of London, and you will be rid of one Muslim terrorist. Got the others?
Wow, well, that escalated quickly, didn't it? One looking like different animals. You look like a pigeon. You look like a sparrow. You look like a really shit version of Jose Mourinho. Two, I want you dead because you're a Muslim terrorist. Kind of a bit of a jump. Some might even say it was a bit of a reach to include the other three at the beginning. But hey, let's carry on and let's see what happens with you, shall we?
Muslims need to be shot or hanged. The mayor is doing nothing about attacks.
First of all, don't think that I'm going to sit here and defend every single malicious tweet that's been sent to Sadiq Khan, because I'm not. I'm not going to sit here and defend it and say, oh yeah, he deserves this and he should do this and he should do that. I don't think that at all. But when somebody is trying to grab your attention and they should all be shot or hanged or killed or whatever, as he has done on this tweet, and then underneath says that Sadiq Khan's not doing anything about attacks, do you feel that it might be an immediate response to a terrorist attack that's just happened, and the fact that the public may perceive, Sadiq Khan may perceive, that you haven't actually really done too much to help in the way of, I don't know, reducing terrorist attack in London, rather than stating stupid quotes of saying it's part and parcel of living in city life, in Western city life?
Muslims have no dignity. I wish Sadiq Khan would just blow himself up like they all do. He might get his 12 virgins.
Again, I'm not going to sit here and defend those type of tweets, but I suppose you could come from a point of asking, where would the rationale of these type of people come from? Do you think it's a reaction to higher terrorist activity and terrorist attacks, or do you think that it's just because people are becoming more radicalised and hate Muslims in general?
As Mayor of London, I wish someone would build a fire and throw you on it. You useless sack of shit.
To be fair, it was a bit harsh, that tweet. A bit harsh. I don't think anybody should be killed for their job. But to be honest, Mr. Khan, you're not doing a particularly great job, are you? But never mind. You know, crime stats going all the way up. Sorry, is that a hate crime if I talk about the criminal stats?
If you use a knife to mutilate your daughter's vagina, will the full force of the law be brought down on you? Asking for a Muslim.
Look, this isn't even a hate speech incident. This is the fact of him actually asking you a genuine question with a bit of humour on the end of it. He's talking about the fact that proportionately, Muslims are more likely to cause a female genital mutilation to their children than any other religion or culture in the world at this moment in time. But yet, the law does not seem to actually do anything about it, when on a previous video that I did, I believe it was around about 1 every 92 minutes is reported in the UK, and that's female genital mutilation. So, it's a genuine question, isn't it?
There's an easy solution for terrorism. Deport the Muslims, starting with your pathetic self.
Again, how is this actually a form of hate speech? Yeah, okay, it's not written in a plain or perfect text. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying there may not even be a form of discrimination in there. But I'm still not seeing the fact that it's a hate speech law. The reason why I say this is because it has a genuine point. If you have people that are coming across as refugees, as in the London Underground bomber, come across as a refugee and set a bomb and everything else like that, shouldn't we be deporting those type of people rather than harming them as criminals and having them the potential to convert more people in prison? And as for the bit at the end about saying they should deport you first because you're pathetic, maybe it's the point of people actually thinking that you're not actually doing anything to benefit the UK citizens.
I don't read this out to be portrayed as a victim, but I worry about what happens when young boys and girls from minority backgrounds see this kind of thing on their social media timelines or experience it themselves.
Quick question for you then, Mr. Khan. If you haven't done this to portray yourself as a victim, then does that mean that you're not a victim of a crime then, because you're not a victim? Meaning that the hate speech laws that you're trying to, force upon other people, or the government's hate speech laws in general, does that mean that if you classify yourself as a victim, then the hate speech laws stand? Or as you just said, that you don't classify yourself as a victim, so the hate speech laws don't stand? I would like to know where your position is on this, because I find it very, very interesting. And second of all, you talk about, this is a detrimental to the kids. The kids are going to find this really hard to change their minds on different things. That's the reason why they go to school. That's the reason why we put them into different situations of, learning. To learn what's good, learn what's bad, learn what's good and wrong. Unfortunately, this is life. Life happens this way. Some people are going to, unfortunately, have complete and utter horrendous views on different people. The fact is, the majority of people are going to have the sensible rules of thumb and say that everybody is created equal. And everybody should have equal opportunities, which I'm a supporter of. But to sit there and say that we should cast off the majority's freedom of expression for the minority's lack of understanding of it is absolutely ludicrous to me.
And what about young girls and women who have been driven from these platforms, reversing our long fight for gender equality? Platforms such as Facebook, Twitter and YouTube have brought huge benefits to society, but also significant challenges. We've already seen evidence of elections and referendums being influenced.
Right, first of all, to do with girls and everything else like that getting deplatformed or whatever. Nobody wants to see girls getting deplatformed or anything else like that. And as the fact of you fighting for your gender equality, the fact of putting women-only shortlists into different places does not prove gender equality. All it does is show that you put women above men. But that's neither here or there. The fact that you talk about YouTube, Facebook and Twitter and say that they have been a huge benefit to society. Yes, they have been. Societies have been able to talk across long distances, been able to post their own political views, their own makeup tutorials, dancing with cats, blah, blah, blah. They've all been able to do all sorts of things like that. To say that they are also damaging is absolutely ludicrous. It proves to the point that if you have an opinion, you need to back it up. And that's just the point in general, isn't it? And as for the last little bit, show me some of the actual evidence that has actually been able to prove the fact that other people and other countries have influenced our referendums, our elections, or any other elections. Because I don't think you'll find actual proof of it. Because otherwise people would actually be arrested, detained, and some people would actually probably be done for treason in some different countries. But carry on conflating what you're actually meaning, right?
A rise in extreme propaganda and online abuse, misogyny and religious hatred, fake news spreading disinformation, algorithms blinkering us from different points of view and pushing people to extremes.
So, Mr. Calm, we meet again. No, sorry. What I really want to say is the fact that you're trying to say, Mr. Calm, that we can't talk about these sort of type of things online. We can't talk about different political issues that affect us. We can't talk about the fact that generally Muslim terrorists are the majority of terrorist attacks that are happening at the moment. And no, I will not say all, but generally it is around about 80 to 90% of all terrorist attacks that have happened this year and last year are to do with, Muslim terrorist organisations. The fact that we're not allowed to talk about that, it's the fact that you push people to these extremist ends. So the fact that you push people that are centrists, that don't actually want to talk about racism or any idea of what's going on, but understand that there is a cultural problem that needs to be addressed, or at least a problem that needs to be addressed, and yet certain people of the government are not allowing that conversation to happen. And that seems to happen generally across our spectrum of government. Now, I'm going to get into a couple of different stories, but you talk about the right and the radicals and everything else that seems to be rising. I have a question for you. Does that include people that are just politically opposed to you? As in people that are generally conservative? And no, I don't mean Tory. I mean generally conservative. Because our Tory government is not a conservative government. It is basically a new Labour government. It's not a great government. we always have this idea that the government in itself is there to protect us. But if it stops people from providing free speech and a platform for people to be able to speak about their problems and issues, shouldn't we be letting those type of people into the country? So, going back to the actual point, the fact that you wouldn't let certain people into the country, you know, because you feel that they're right-wing terrorists and whatever, you have this BBC trending page at this moment in time about the 3 people that were refused entry into our country, into the UK, and obviously into England predominantly. Now, you have Lauren Southern in the middle of these picture here. Yeah, she's conservative-leaning, as in she wants family values and things like that. But generally, she loves the idea of freedom of speech and the fact of why can't we criticise different things and see how the reactions are. We'll get into that later on in some of her social experiments, which I find absolutely funny. And then you have the other 2. Now, I don't know too much about the other 2, to be fair, but I can pretty categorically state that I don't think either of them 2 are what you would call right-wing terrorists. I'm not sure about that one. But we will see what the BBC actually want to portray in this story. So, at the title, why 3 anti-Islam activists were refused entry to the UK. Yes, you heard that right. Just because they're anti-Islamic activists, that's the reasons why they were refused entry to the UK. Even though that's not predominantly what their views are to actually critique Islam. But we'll carry on. As you can see there, from right to left, you have Brittany Pettibone, you have Lauren Southern, and you have Martin Sellner. So, again, moving on to this actual title. 3 activists with big social media followings from Austria, Canada, and the US, which is funny that they wrote it that way, considering that Brittany is from the US, Lauren is from Canada, and it's Martin that is from Austria. But yeah, they have been barred from entering the United Kingdom, in a move that some say is part of a crackdown on the far right. Interesting the fact that you only call them anti-Islamic activists at the top of your title, but now you're trying to say that they're part of the far right. Interesting. So, Brittany Pettibone and her boyfriend Martin Sellner were refused entry to the UK when they landed at Luton Airport on Friday. They were detained, now this is important, for 2 days and then deported, told that they weren't allowed in at all. I find that absolutely horrendous. We'll get into the reasons beforehand. Another activist, Lauren Southern, was refused entry by the border force near Calais on Monday. She had planned to meet with the couple and the former leader of the English Defence League, Tommy Robinson. Sellner, an Austrian, and prominent figure in the anti-migration group Generation Identity, was due to make his speech in Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park. He was the leader of a Defend Europe campaign last summer, responsible for targeting boats run by NGOs trying to rescue migrants in the Mediterranean. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's particularly the right thing to do what he was doing, but at the same point, it still doesn't stop him from being able to come into the country. On his social media accounts, Robinson says he plans to deliver Sellner's speech in Hyde Park on Sunday. And he did, and it was a great speech. Very, very good, very moving, very good. It's a shame that Sellner couldn't have actually done it himself. In a statement about the activist, the Home Office spokesperson said, Border Force has the power to refuse entry to an individual if it is considered that his or her presence in the UK is not conducive to the public good. That means that you can't go on holiday then. It means you can't come to work. Because, you might not be able to contribute to the good of society, and we have to decide who's coming in and who's coming out. Why is it the fact that you only did it for these 3 people? Pettibone, an American, tweeted an image of the letter she says was handed to her by an immigration officer. It states that her planned activities posed a serious threat to the fundamental interests of society and are likely to incite tensions between local communities in the United Kingdom. What? Talking about the criticism of a religion. And if not the religion as a whole, then certain people that interpretate that religion as a martyrdom to be able to carry out what they want to do as terrorists. I don't get why we're not allowed to speak about that, government. Why aren't we allowed to talk about the threat that's in the room, or the elephant in the room, as people would say? Why aren't we allowed to talk about that? I mean that wholeheartedly, government. Why are we not allowed? Let's move on, because I'm not going to get a response looking into a camera, am I? The letter also cites Selena's possession of leaflets which reference possible violence at his speech, and calls Robinson a far-right leader whose materials and speeches incite racial hatred. Okay. Right. So, Selena's in possession of leaflets which reference possible violence at the speech. Okay. Was that their violence, or was that violence coming from other people that were going to oppose them? Because you're not really putting that into perspective. And calls Robinson, what he does, or these leaflets, a far-right leader whose materials and speeches incite racial hatred. Is that leaflets from different groups, or is it Selena's leaflets that he's produced himself? Because though it may be in his possession, he may have wanted to talk about propaganda. But hey, let's carry on, shall we? Pettibone was one of the most prominent online voices spreading the Pizzagate conspiracy theory, which falsely claimed that top Democratic officials were keeping child sex slaves underneath a Washington, D.C. pizza restaurant. Now, I don't really know anything about that. If you honestly felt that something was going on, would you push the story no matter what, especially if it was to do with government officials? I'm not trying to say what she did was right, but if you honestly believed it, wouldn't that be the, motion that you would take, the ideas that you would take? So, there's some other little links there. Obviously, all the links that I use and provide will be provided in the description box below, so please have a look and read yourself. Southern says she was questioned under the Schedule 7 of the Terrorism Act 2000 on her political views and her opinion on right-wing terrorism. She tells BBC Trending that she was refused entry on the grounds of her involvement in the distribution of racist material in Luton. In February, the Canadian activist displayed flyers saying, "Allah is a gay god," which is funny as hell, but I don't see how that would necessarily be offensive to anybody, especially considering that, a gay god would mean that they would be interested in LGBTQ, whatever it is now, issues. Surely that would be a good thing, wouldn't it? And to bring light to the fact that other things might happen. I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. Now, I'm being a bit facetious, but it's a case of, I know that she did this for attention, and it's to prove the fact that they cannot criticise or make fun of that particular religion because, reasons? Hurt feelings? I don't know. Southern, who has nearly 500,000 subscribers on YouTube and regularly posts politically charged stunts, says this was part of a social experiment video. She doesn't do politically charged stunts. She generally does news articles and normally does the points of saying, well, I'm going to do this, let's see what happens, and if they're so tolerant, let's see what happens. It is a social experiment. She's not really lying on that one. So, as we've just moved down, like Pettibone and Selena, someone was informed that her actions present a threat to the fundamental interests of society by border force. Again, I find this absolutely abhorrent and absolutely a scary tactic that our government is playing. So the fact that people that are inside the country are too scared to talk, bar a couple of people, and people that are from different countries that are coming to talk about different issues, are now not allowed to come in to talk about these issues because, you know, it might cause a little bit of tension. Now, I'm not trying to say that tension is what I want, but we need to have the conversation regardless. Regardless of if it's a Canadian, Austrian, or an American coming in to try and talk to us about it, we need to have this conversation. And many, many others, but we're not allowed due to hate speech. So, I'm going to leave this story here because it's starting to annoy me very, very much. I'm now going to talk about different people that have been arrested for different forms of protest, and the Lord and Saviour, Count Dankula himself. Right, so first of all, we're going to be talking about quickly, very, very quickly, because I'm not really going to be going over the top of these very in depth. Britain First leaders jailed for anti-Muslim hate crimes. Now, whatever you think of Britain First leaders, and personally I have my own personal opinions, but at the same time I don't think that they should be arrested for speech. It shouldn't be happening, and that's as simple as that. That's as far as I will go into this story at this moment in time. The fact that they have been arrested, the fact that Fresnon was sentenced to 36 weeks imprisonment, and Godding, who is the gentleman, for 18 weeks by a judge who said the crimes were deliberately planned against targeted victims. Now, again, as I said before, I am not condoning what they did, didn't do, whatever. It is a case that it was targeted as speech. I do not have a problem with freedom of speech. That's the issue, and people are being put into prison because of freedom of speech. Now, to go on a slightly different tangent. You then have, after they have been arrested and sent to prison, Facebook that then deletes the Britain First page that had over 1 million views or subscribers at the time. Deleting a whole political ideology, a movement in fact. No, I'm not trying to say that they would have changed the world. Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. I don't know, but that's not my place to try and censor them from doing it. It was the whole point of censorship, and the fact that the government is producing all of this censorship and forcing people to go to prison. Now, here we go on to the actual members of public. Right, before I play this video, these people are protesting against trees that are being fallen in the middle of Sheffield. Now, though I don't have any political agreements or disagreements with what's going on in this incidents, what I do is the fact that there are 4 policemen around at this particular moment in time in the frame to tell, as you will see very shortly, a woman blowing on a horn while protesting is going to get arrested. So this is a 45-second clip. Please watch with me.
People yesterday, there'll be other people over there what's complaining, alright? So yesterday's...
Show me.
Alright?
Show me.
I don't have to show you.
Show
alright?
me. Complain.
So this is your warning. If it continues, you will be arrested. Okay? One more time, that's it.
I'm going to do it.
Hey?
You might as well, go on then.
One more time.
Go on, arrest me.
Hey?
Arrest me. Go on.
2023 Spectre is waiting with the rest.
Arrested for tooting a horn.
Right, you're arrested for 64 names from the corner.
People are dangerous.
So, you have police officers now arresting old women protesting about trees, blowing on toy trumpets, and they're being arrested under Section 4 of the Public Order Act. It's a bit worrying, isn't it? The fact that, yes, she was being a little bit rambunctious, she was a little bit playful, but at the same time, looking at it from a logical point of view, she's there protesting at an organised event. They have all the legal requirements to be there, meaning that she can make as much noise as she wants to a point as well, because the sound pollution laws are also not into force. So, really, there isn't a public order offence act that she is committing. So now that you see that general members of the public are being arrested for simple measures of just not obeying the police officers, for instance, we'll get to that one very, very soon. But first of all, let's quickly talk about his Lord and Saviour, Count Dankula. I feel like, unfortunately, Count Dankula's case is a very sad case in the fact that freedom of speech in itself has been completely and utterly cast aside. Where generally it mattered what context you were saying and how you meant what you were saying. Not the words that you used, but the context in the sentence that it was structured in. For them to convict Count Dankula, they have stripped away all the forms of context that has happened. Now, I'm not going to go into absolutely everything that there is to go into on Count Dankula's point. I feel that far better YouTubers have done this than I have. I do not need to go into it so much. All I need to do is pledge my support to these people as well, and suggest that in Academic Agent's video, which I will be linking in the descriptions, also with the templates that he scripts as well, which you can also go directly to his own video as well to find that, to use his own templates as well, is the best course of action. Talk to your MPs, get people involved, find out what's going on. You also have Voltaire's Ghosts, that at this moment in time has done an amazing video on the Count Dankula situation, where I don't actually think that I could say anything better than what either of them two gentlemen would have put on the table. So I'm actually going to leave it to them to actually try to pass what we're going to do for the future for Count Dankula. So please, after this video has finished, please go and watch those two videos, and please do what they say to a point. Make sure that you write to your MP. Make sure that you try to educate everybody that's around you at this moment in time. Try and let everybody know of the story that's going on. Now, with the fact that the government is definitely being authoritarian, let's now talk about the fact of people like Ricky Gervais that are now taking the side of freedom of speech, that are coming out and actually demonstrating the fact that they are going to protect the freedom of speech of Count Dankula. So, this is obviously talking about Count Dankula's case. This is the Evening Standard, and it says Yorkshire MP Philip Davis backs a Ricky Gervais in freedom of speech row after YouTuber Count Dankula found guilty of making highly offensive video, apparently. So, moving down, you have Yorkshire MP Philip Davis has demanded a debate of freedom of speech after a man was found guilty of making a grossly offensive video online. YouTuber Count Dankula, real name Mark Meacham, taught his girlfriend's pug to react to the phrase such as "sick hell" and "gas the Jews" in a viral video. A self-described professional blah 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 poster and free speech advocate, Meacham said that the video had been taken out of context. Speaking in the House of Commons, Mr. Davies said, "We guard our freedom of speech in this House very dearly indeed, but we don't allow our constituents the same freedoms." Recent court cases have put the whole issue of freedom of speech into the public domain. Ricky Gervais and David Badadelli have joined forces on this issue. Ricky Gervais said, "A man has been convicted in a UK court for making a joke that was deemed grossly offensive. If you don't believe in a person's right to say things you might find grossly offensive, then you don't believe in freedom of speech." Davis continues, "Can we please have a debate about freedom of speech in this country? Something this country has long held dear and is in danger of throwing away needlessly." Andrea Leadsom, leader of the Commons, responded, "I absolutely commend Mr. Davis for raising this very important issue." And carrying on, "We do, of course, fully support free speech. However, there are limits to it." No. Clues in the name of it. Freedom of speech. Freedom of speech. "And he will be aware there are laws around what you are allowed to say, and I don't know the circumstances of his specific point." Yes, of course you don't. Because you don't understand the process of free speech, because you've just literally said there are limits to free speech. There is no limits to free speech, it's free speech. Or limited speech. It depends on what you're trying to talk about. "But he may well wish to seek an adornment debate to take this up directly with ministers." So, it's now been brought up in the Houses of Commons about actually having debate and actually talking about what's supposed to be going on here. So, let's actually find out what else is going on. Because I'm quite happy with the way that this is going. I think we've got a lot more people that are coming forward. And the good thing is, we've got somebody that I actually quite like. I don't agree with him politically completely, but I do agree with the fact that he has every right to say what he wants to say and how he says it. And I specifically agree with this point and endorse him wholeheartedly for this point. That would be Jonathan Pye.
I'm here outside Airdrie Sheriff Court, where earlier this week YouTube comedian Marcus Meekan, otherwise known as Count Dankula, was convicted of making a grossly offensive video. In the video, he taught his girlfriend's pug dog to do a Nazi salute whilst he repeated the phrase, "Gas the Jews." Count Dankula is due to be sentenced in April. Right, Tim, I want to talk about this. Right, okay, so some people found this offensive, understandable. Some people found it funny. The video got shared 3 million times on YouTube with lots of inane comments like lol underneath. Okay, so clearly some people found it funny. What's that tell you, Tim? It tells you that both offence and humour are subjective. Either way, it was a fucking joke, you cunts! And he might go to prison. Okay, he was convicted because the judge believed he was inciting racial hatred. It's a fucking pug dog. He was mocking Nazis. I'll tell you where else in history you'd be convicted of a crime for teaching your dog to mock Nazis. Nazi fucking Germany. You'd have had the fucking Gestapo kicking your fucking door in. The fucking EDL isn't watching the video of a Nazi pug dog going, yeah, that portrays us in a good light. Find me one neo-Nazi who is using that YouTube clip as a recruiting tool. It's a pug mimicking their glorious leader. So yes, it is offensive if you're a fucking Nazi. What if you mock something and some twat is offended and some uptight, humourless judge doesn't get the joke? And because the Scottish legal system is so backward, you might not even get a fucking jury. You're fucked! In that instance, this judge has basically said we are not allowed to make fun of Nazis in case it's misinterpreted. The prosecution said that context and intent are irrelevant, and the judge agreed. Think about that, Tim. In order to get a conviction, they had to willfully misunderstand the context of the video. The judge basically admitted it. Yes, Tim, yes, he did repeatedly use the phrase, gas the Jews. It's the extremity of the phrase is the point. That's the joke. Funny or not, offensive or not, and without context, of course it's not funny. But in context, it's a cute little pug dog reacting to one of the worst things you could ever say. That's the fucking point. It's a joke, you fucking cunts. Where are the artists, the writers? Where are the comedians? Where are they? Why are they not up in fucking arms? You've got Ricky Gervais, David Baddiel, a handful of others. That's it, basically. Everyone else is a fucking coward. The reason they don't want to stick their head above the parapet is because, you know, freedom of speech is like so unfashionable these days. What the fuck is going on when the likes of Tommy Robinson and Katie Hopkins hold the mantle of free speech? They don't own the principle. And just because some nasty people have supported this guy doesn't mean the principle is wrong. We need to reclaim that fucking fight, man. This matters. The law works in precedents. Once one person is convicted for telling a joke, that's it. And can we convict retrospectively? I mean, we have quite a lot of historical cases being tried at the moment. So, you know, why not convict John Cleese, Jerry Sadowitz? Let's dig Bill Hicks up. And if the judge has ruled that context is irrelevant, then surely even me reporting that he used the phrase gas the Jews is anti-Semitic. If context is irrelevant, I am right now inciting racial hatred according to the Scottish courts just by reporting the case. In which case, fuck it. If I'm going down in style. Higgskeil! Fight the boys have Neuschka! Never a fucking springtime for Hitler! And right, well, Tim, this is me miming being a Nazi fucking the Von Trapps. Fucking grow up, you stupid, authoritarian, humorless, tyrannical cunts.
There are a couple of points that I would like to echo from Jonathan Pye. And that is that laws are done by precedents. Meaning that if Count Dankula is sent to prison for this, then there are nowhere for anybody to hide. Because it says that the government can strip away the context in which you were trying to do something as either entertainment or how you were trying to portray a particular political issue in your opinions, and can strip that away and say, no, in the government's eyes and in the law's eyes, your context and your meanings have nothing. No meanings whatsoever. Your context doesn't matter. Not one iota. And that's why this case is such an important case. And again, as Jonathan Pye has suggested, where the hell are everybody? Where is everybody trying to defend people? Where are the people in real life? I know a lot of people in the internet and YouTube fame have been able to make lots of videos, and a super collab that's going around at the moment, and well done to the guys that have done that. Very well done. It's just a case of nobody's really talking about the actual main issue of this. This is going down as an authoritarian point, and as soon as this gets legal precedence, which when Count Dankula gets set down, which let's not beat around the fucking bush here, because they want him to a point where they have fucked around with the jury so much that there ain't a jury, there ain't no legal standings, they fucked around with the system so much up there to get this guy convicted. As Jonathan Pye suggested, they have actually taken away all context and misunderstanding and misunderstanding of what's going on and what the meanings were of what Count Dankula said he wanted to portray as, to the way that they think and the way that they want it to be portrayed, rather than the actual creator who created it. It's like when people were talking about feminists saying about, oh, well, we want to take away your thought crime, your ability to be able to talk about particular issues. Now it's a case of they're now legally taking away your right to make a joke. And as soon as that has been taken, it will take away the point of being able to report on it. It will take the point away of being able to talk about it completely and utterly. And this is why the UK government is an authoritarian government. Now that's the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this video and to this channel. Without further ado, I bid you farewell. I bid you adieu. Take care. And for fuck's sake, don't tell any jokes.